older I have gotten, these, and this have really become the way in which I choose to spend my time. Not just mindlessly scrolling through social media and just consuming unnecessary content, but also to really be creative, spend my time learning things and doing things that really come from my zone of genius in which I can add value to the world, and also connecting with small groups of like-minded people. These are the traits that you would typically find in what the world knows as introverts. And introverts are a very misunderstood lot, and they come with a lot of misconceptions and things that people don't fully understand about them. So in this video, I'm going to cover how you as a healthcare provider can really harness your power and strength in being an introvert and translate that into becoming a good communicator with your patients. Channel, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps healthcare providers from non-English speaking backgrounds or English as a second language backgrounds improve on both their language fluency as well as their overall communication skills to make them a more empathetic, impactful, and influential communicator, for them to build trust, authority, credibility, and better relationships with their patients, as well as stand out in their workplace as a person of excellence. So all of last week, I made a lot of posts about what introverts are like and where I think introverts can really be misunderstood in many ways, and how as a healthcare provider, it's not uncommon for all introverts, yourself included as a healthcare provider, if you're one of them, who does resonate with being more of an introvert. And you might be thinking, okay, how am I going to be a good communicator when I can't really string two words together, when I'm not in a mood to, speaking to large groups of people, just having small talk all the time. That's really not, those are not things that make introverts really comfortable, and it's not really where they showcase their best selves as well. And a lot of introverts fall into the trap when they think that because they're not able to do that, that somehow that they're doomed and they cannot be good communicators and they cannot really express themselves authentically and effectively. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions about introverts anyway, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but I just wanted to overall just clarify this big myth that, introverts are not good communicators. That's completely untrue. The way in which introverts show up, connect with people, empower people, and serve people is completely different from the tried and tested, run-of-the-mill, way or path. It's very off the beaten track, the way in which they actually do it. Now, for me personally, I have evolved from being a very shy, reserved, taking introversion to the next level type of person, which is what I was in my childhood, a very awkward, very reserved, quiet, shy child, to still being introverted, but also quite ambiverted. So I'm quite intentional now in the way in which I make connections, form friendships, the type of people that I want in my network, and also most importantly, how I show up for my audience and my clients, and even the content that I make. Now, for example, a person like me, I'm not comfortable going on TikTok and doing dances or, being, loud and vocal and doing skits and all that. That doesn't come naturally with me, even though I do have a TikTok channel for this, for my business. So I'm just going to leave the link of that over here. That's really a link to this YouTube channel. So YouTube and LinkedIn are more my jam. I like communicating with depth, really getting into the heart of things and really focusing on long form, and also keeping it real and keeping it authentic and genuine rather than, and there's nothing wrong in people who want to do skits and want to showcase their humor. There's absolutely nothing wrong in that as long as they're comfortable doing so. When I picture myself doing that, however, it makes me feel like an imposter. And a lot of introverts can be like that as well. So, the trend, what people think is that to be a good communicator, you have to really shout out from the rooftops in order to just speak your mind or express what you're trying to say. Now, if you remember one of my older videos from earlier this year where I talked about how you can be charismatic regardless of where you are in the introversion extroversion scale and still manage to get your point across and be a good communicator. So just to get a bit of context, feel free to check out that video. I'll leave the link of the video on the end screen as well. Now, let's talk about how, as introverts, if you've realized the fact that you as a healthcare provider are an introverted person, how can you connect and communicate and deliver a service and show your professionalism as an introverted healthcare provider when you know for a fact that speaking in a very exuberant or an outlandish type of way is not really your thing. Similarly, talking to large groups of people, doing small talk may really not be your thing. How can you still show up and improve your communication skills as a healthcare provider? So I'm just going to cover a few tips in which you can do that. So let's get straight into it. Number one is asking open-ended and in-depth questions. So obviously when you are in consultation with a patient, and this is much more common and easier to do when you are, say, working as a therapist, when you're working with people who are in the mental health space, it's quite regular to ask, in-depth questions that really get your patients to really reflect and think back on experiences from the past and give you that response accordingly. Now, the other thing with what introverts are really well known for, that they are very, very deep thinkers and they put a lot of depth into what they do. So, instead of just asking a very simple, basic question like, how was your day? That's quite a common thing that you do as part of a small talk. Or you can also say, instead of saying, how was your weekend? You can ask, a better question like, what was a memorable highlight for you in this week? What was a challenge for you in this week? So whether you are in the therapy space, whether you're in any other line, any other specialty of healthcare, asking an open-ended question and that is going to, and doing it in such a way that it gives you a deep response, a deep, well thought out response, as opposed to just being a yes or no, is a very good way to connect with your patients. Now, you can't just jump into an open-ended question straight away. You have to do a little bit of small talk, but I would advise you to not take as much time in going from that one end of doing the small talk to just going straight into something deeper. So really harness that and ask questions that not just give, your own, showcase what you do best, which is really thinking about and putting a lot of substance and depth in your response and everything. Also do that when you're asking questions or gathering information with your patients. So that's number one. Number two, make the most of your power of observation and being a good listener. So introverts have a big superpower in the sense that even though they don't say much or they don't really want to say or talk when there's no real need for it, they tend to be really good listeners. And, as I always, nearly in every single video of mine and all my content, I talk about how important it is to listen actively. And if you're a good listener, as it is, getting to that phase of being a good listener, moving to becoming a better active listener, should be a much easier transition if you are an introverted person. Similarly, introverts are also very, very observant. Now, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. I learn best when I observe from other people. I learn best from when I see things around me and I perceive it and give my own perspective on it. So again, being observational is very not only just vital, but also a very incredibly good thing if you are a healthcare provider. So really you're able to, by doing that, being a good listener and also being observant, you're able to pick up little nuances in your patients. So say, for example, if you are, say, in the emergency room, you're an emergency doctor and you can actually gauge in a patient, if you are quite introverted, instead of going on and, saying something to sort of just pacify a patient and just reassure them in not in the most like authentic way. It's introverts are able to actually really observe and really absorb how a patient is feeling, especially if you're in an ER situation where, as it is, patients are very vulnerable, it's chaotic, and it's also a place where the stress levels are very, very high. So in that case, you're able to, again, instead of jumping the gun and starting to pacify or just calm down the patient straight away, you are able to observe and analyze every situation individually and do offer the calming and reassurance, but do it in a much more gradual and subtle way, as opposed to just doing it straight away. So the power of observation and being a very good listener is something that introverts are innately good at. So definitely capitalizing on it is what I would absolutely recommend. The third one definitely is something that I see a lot of people, whether they're introverts or extroverts, that they're doing. It is that they are turning to their power and strength of being creative. And that is, again, something that I would absolutely highly recommend. Now, in my coaching program, this is something that I really encourage my clients to do a lot of, regardless of whether they're introverts or otherwise. So use creative mediums to express yourselves when you are sort of wanting to share your knowledge, your expertise, your experience. So it's very important that you use a medium, do it beyond the scope of just the four walls of your workplace or your profession. Turn to platforms such as LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. So last week I spoke a lot about Dr. Amir, who's a very good example of someone who's very introverted, but at the same time, have a look at how amazing his TikTok account is. So I would highly recommend. Now, you don't have to do exactly what he's doing, because he's a dancer, so he incorporates a lot of dancing in that. In his videos and in his content, so you don't necessarily have to do that if that's not your thing. If you're someone who's very good with animation, if you're someone who's quite creative with drawing and using Photoshop and design and things like that, absolutely use that, because you can do that with Instagram, you can do that with TikTok. All of this is a very good way to not only build an audience, be it for professional purposes or otherwise, but it also will make you develop as a better communicator. Now, if you look at my videos from last year and compare them to now, they are vastly different. It's like almost night and day. And the reason for that is because I have reflected on how I can use my creativity in a better way in order to bring out better quality videos. And that's what the more you practice with your creativity, that's the better you absolutely get at it. So definitely find the right medium for yourself when you are trying to share your knowledge and expertise, and capitalize on that and share it in a way that's best for you, whether it's by writing, whether it's by doing skits, whether it's by just showing images and putting a story next to them, whatever best suits you. And finally, don't try to be someone that you're not. A lot of people may be internalizing the fact that, if I'm an introvert, that means I'm not going to be good at communicating. I can't charm or dazzle my way or make an impact or influence on people just because I'm not able to talk to a big crowd. Now, my own business coach Lydia's clients, 80% of them are introverts. Despite them being the way they are, all of them have gone on to become very, very successful business owners. So obviously they have managed to connect with their audience and communicate with them in a way that really reflects on who they are as a person. Now, I have also mentioned this in one of my past LinkedIn posts, which I'm going to leave over here. And I will also leave the link over here to Lydia's video on how she talks about how you as an introvert can really communicate from your genius zone, even though that video is about how to speak to your audience as a business owner. The similar principles can definitely be applied. So the bottom line is that just because you're an introvert, please don't ever believe that there is something wrong with you, or you're flawed, or you're doomed in some way, and you feel like, I just can't talk or express myself as well, or I can't be that charismatic. Is completely untrue. some of the most creative minds and the most successful performers on stages, whether they're actors or musicians, are deeply introverted, and yet they are very successful, charismatic, and famous in their own ways. So if they can do it, I don't see any reason why you cannot. So hopefully this video has given you not only some tips and strategies on how you can hone your communication skills and bring it to the surface as an introverted healthcare provider, but also empower you in some way as to not be ashamed or not feel inferior just because you're an introvert. Because as I've mentioned before, a lot of power, a lot of strength, a lot of substance lies within the minds and hearts of introverts. So to learn more about what I do and what my coaching is, and be up to date with all the content that I'm posting on this channel on a weekly basis, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and also like this video if you genuinely liked it. And stay tuned for next week's video, which will be on a completely different topic. Thank you very much for your time, attention, presence, and engagement, and I will see you next week.